Today's episode is sponsored by Warp and Weft Textiles, an online fabric store operating on Coast Salish land. Warp and Weft is a plastics-free business offering woven fabrics and independent patterns. As one of the few stockists of Tauco magazine, Warp and Weft shares the quarterly sewing publication's emphasis on climate, culture, and community. This month, Craft Industry Alliance listeners are welcome to take 15% off fabric at Warp and Weft with the discount code WEFT15CIA. That's WEFT 15CIA. Thank you so much, Warp and Weft Textiles. And now, here's the show. Welcome to episode 220 of the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals where you can strengthen your creative business, stay up to date on industry news, and build connections within our supportive trade association. Check it out at craftindustryalliance.org. Today on the show, we are talking about building a craft kit business with my guest, Stephanie Carswell. Stephanie is the founder and creative director of Hawthorn Handmade, a textile craft kit design company based in Dorset in southern England. Hawthorn Handmade began in 2013 with a small range of needle felting kits, and over the last 9 years has developed from a small side business started in the back room of Stephanie's previous business, a gallery and haberdashery/workshop space, to a well-known creative company selling embroidery, cross-stitch, needle felting, weaving, and felt craft kits through almost 600 stores around the world, including over 250 in the United States. Stephanie lives in a rural village nearby to her business with her rescue lurcher, Cloda, I hope I'm saying that right, and partner Owen, who is also Hawthorn's website developer. When she's not busy with the business, she loves playing tennis, puttering around in her garden, and crashing on the sofa in front of Netflix. Stephanie Carswell, welcome.
Hi there, Abby. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. And I love your business. I love kits. I love craft kits. I'm a big consumer of craft kits and always have been. So I'm very excited to talk about them because I also think it's something that a lot of our listeners would like to do, would like to create and sell. And there's a lot that goes into having a successful kit business. So I'm excited to dive in. But before we get there, let's just go back a little bit and tell me, where did you grow up?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from the UK. I actually grew up in the Midlands, in Nottingham, known for Robin Hood all around the world. Grew up in a really small little village there where my parents still live. So I still get to go home to this tiny little one street village with a dead end. You can't actually go through it, called Thrumpton, which I don't think could sound more English if it tried. I lived there for, up until I was 21. And then now I live in Dorset, which is in southern UK. So we're near the coast here, whereas I came from a total landlocked middle of England area. So it's lovely being here by the sea. We're inland just a little bit, but it's less than an hour to the coast. It's gorgeous.
Is where you are now pretty rural?
Yeah, it's really rural. It's one of the most rural counties in England. So we don't have like a motorway or a highway or anything. We don't have a city, like a large city. We've got large towns, but there's not much else. There's a lot of cows. There's a lot of fields. It's pretty rural.
Wow, that sounds really lovely, though. So when you were growing up, I know you were pretty crafty. What did your parents do for work?
Yeah, so my dad's an engineer, or was an engineer, and also worked kind of in the health and safety side of things. So he was a sheet metal worker by trade, and he worked for people like Rolls-Royce and rally bikes, making jet engines and bikes and things. So he's really handsy, does a lot with his hands, always making stuff, always drawing as well, and I certainly learned to draw from him. And I always loved when he'd always tell me they'd be getting their work done, and they'd have finished in the first few hours the work they needed to do that day, and then he'd make stuff afterwards. So I have a ring that I believe he made for his mum originally, that is an offcut from a titanium piece of a Rolls-Royce jet engine. So he's really, always making things. And then I moved into more of an admin role towards the end before he retired. And my mum is in education. So she was a lecturer. She had a bit of a random start. She was a radiographer at one point, sold pharmaceuticals at one point, and then, was a lecturer and ended up as Pro-Vice Chancellor of Birmingham City University. So she's had a really amazing career. I've done a lot of work in business. And then before they had kids, she was also always making. She was going to evening classes. She learned pottery, woodworking, various other bits and pieces like that. So there's always been kind of making around. And my grandmother as well was always making. And I used to kind of spend quite a lot of time with her growing up.
And so what were you like as a kid?
Always making something, always drawing. I love drawing Disney characters. I'd sit and copy them. You could get the books of kind of like how to draw Goofy and how to draw Mickey. And I'd sit and just draw for hours. I remember we've got this, I've still got it actually, a little book of animals, like rural animals of Britain kind of thing. And I'd just sit and copy the drawings. I'd make little kind of air dry clay creatures, anything like that. I didn't actually sew much, which is interesting because it's gone in that direction. I remember I did like one sewing project in a kind of home economics class at school, and that was about it. I really didn't sew much. Always drawing. And my brother, I've got an older brother, but he's nearly 4 years older than me, so he was off doing his own thing. So I'd spend quite a bit of time just at the kitchen table, doodling away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when you went to university, what did you sort of plan for your future, for your career? What did you think you wanted to do?
Yeah, I actually did arts and event management at university. So it was like a vocational course, a hands-on course. So it was working in festivals, kind of how to manage festivals, booking acts, all that kind of stuff. And then it was also things like theatre management and gallery management. It was a bit of a quirky course, really. It kind of doesn't quite exist anymore, unfortunately. We were about the last year to do it. There was only 16 of us. So it was a pretty small course.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting. It was really hands-on, and you had to budget and run events, and you basically each year started up another mini business and ran an event with a small team of you.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I mean, it was event space versus kit space, but it sounds like in some ways it was like great business training as far as like budgeting and planning and projecting, what's going to happen in the future. And so it's still creative, but a little bit along a differting line.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really creative still because we were doing things like finding artists and working with artists. It was budgeting a large scale festival is a great learning tool. And just being able to work with a lot of moving parts and figuring that out, because you have that kind of event and there's just stuff all over the place all the time.
Yeah.
And being able to keep on top of that was a really, really good learning experience. And I did work for a local festival for a little while afterwards, but then ended up going off in a different direction.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that would be great training because one of the things that I know I have faced when you're growing a company is just overwhelm and feeling like there's so many things and it feels like impossible. And so I feel like it's great to have had that experience and professional training in a sheltered way where, you're still learning. So yeah, that's great. Very, very cool thing to study in university. So, so you said you worked in that for a little while, and then I know, I think you worked at a gallery and then started your own gallery. So tell us a little bit about that piece of the journey.
Yeah, so after uni, I worked for a local craft centre called Walford Mill, and it's in this gorgeous old mill building. And it got kind of all the amazing old beams and stuff through the building. There was points where, because of where the old mill works inside the building had gone through the floors, you could look from like the 4th floor down and kind of see the ground floor and stuff. It was an incredible building with literally with a stream running through it, because it was a mill building, and it's been turned into an art space, and loads of local artists and contemporary craft. And that you've got makers on site. So there's a lady working there with a loom, there's printmakers, artists, everything, and a cafe around the corner as well with lovely space. And I just did a bit of everything, really. I helped answer emails. I helped them on their website. I ordered the toilet roll. I was, a bit of a kind of anything they needed me to do, worked in the shop. But it was my first real proper modern introduction to contemporary craft at that point. I kind of hadn't really been involved so much in that side of things. I've been really focused on the music side with looking at festivals. And it was eye-opening. I fell in love. I really did.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about contemporary craft, because I think that's exactly the right word. There's like sort of different tiers, I guess, of craft. Sometimes I might call that category like fine craft. I'm not really sure. It's sort of like glass blowing and like book, some types of book making or book binding, and some types of woodworking. There's just this sort of like elevated sort of craft, and then it crosses over sometimes into sort of craft that you might think of as like, well, what Hawthorn Handmade sells, like craft kits, or what you find on Etsy and that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? There's kind of like these sort of differences between those two categories.
It's like you say, art, and what is art? It's got so much underneath it. Craft's the same, that you can have stuff that, a kid, like a 6-year-old can pick up a little children's craft kit, and they are crafting. And somebody could have done a 7-year apprentice in making chairs, and they are crafting. You've got one word that covers so much. And there's definitely, I've come across quite a bit of confusion. And moving from the contemporary craft also, I did then open my own contemporary craft gallery, and being very much in that space where it was that higher end. It's really kind of stunning silver work. We actually had a bookbinding exhibition, interesting you mentioned books, called By the Book, that really focused on all of that side of things. Stunning blown glass, ceramics, kind of stuff that people really are dedicating their lives to. And then I have shifted to the more homemade side of things. But I feel there's a lot of judgment amongst people across the term and what's proper craft and all of that stuff, and I hate that. I think all of it is, so long as you are making something with your hands and getting the enjoyment out of that brings, then there shouldn't be any judgment there. And everything that's made is beautiful in its own way, whether it's because it's come from a place of skill or because it's come from a place of heart. I don't think it matters.
No, I don't think so either. And I feel like and all of those folks need to have a business too, need to run a business too, right? There's for all of them, there's business skills involved if you are going to be like monetizing what you're making. So, it's not like anybody is sort of removed from that either. It's anyway, I agree. We should get rid of that judgment. So, okay. So you ran this carry that you opened, and it was Hawthorn Contemporary Arts and Crafts. So it had that Hawthorn name in it, which carried forward into the kit business. And it was then that you actually started making kits while you were there, right?
Yes, so I set the gallery, and then I started to teach myself needle felting within the first year of having the gallery space. It was pretty quiet on some days, and I was looking for something interesting to do, new skill, and I wanted to make some props for the window. It was coming up to Halloween, and I'd seen a felted pumpkin online somewhere, and this is way back when. It's kind of, I have to remind people sometimes that this would be 2010. And needle felting was not really a known craft at all. It wasn't for a good few years after that. So I dove in quite early on the needle felting and taught myself. I bought a kit. I say kit, it was a pack of wool and a very basic set of instructions and some needles. I actually bought it from the States because I couldn't find anything local to me, and got going, and totally addicted straight away, couldn't stop, and started making my own pieces, selling my own pieces, and then teaching. So the main thing was teaching workshops, and I started teaching both in my own space and then at lots of other galleries, kind of local festivals, that kind of thing, private classes, people booking me for their local WI groups, like Women's Institute groups, all that kind of stuff. And then they started asking for kits. Something to take home, something their auntie would really love to have a go at this, but she couldn't make the workshop, or that kind of thing. So I did a little starter kit, which was just like a brown bag, a few bits of wool, a block of foam in it, and some needles, and a very, very basic sheet instructions, and sold that under the shop name. And then it was from that the kind of idea of doing it properly sparked, and I started kind of working on an actual set of designs, which were animals, and that took me about 6 months, and I ended up launching that in, it was about, May 2013. And May is the month of the Hawthorn, so it's known as the May tree in lots of folklore stuff, because it tends to flower in May. And it kind of, it worked keeping the name, and the alliteration was always a nice thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great name. Okay, so it's so interesting. So then you started having these kits. You had a small series of animal-based needle felting kits. And at what point did you realize, wait a minute, this is actually what I'm best at doing, or what I want to be doing, and this gallery space that I have is maybe secondary or is not as important?
Yeah, so the gallery space, I loved it. I loved buying stuff for it. I loved finding artists and things. But the actual day-to-day running and getting people through the door and making money was hard work. It's the hardest I've ever worked. And we've had some really tough times with Hawthorn Handmade over the years. But God, the shop was going home at the end of the day, not knowing where your next rent payment's going to come from. And then once we launched the kits, within the first month, I'd gotten 6 wholesale accounts. And I hadn't really tried. They just kind of came about for a few contacts and a little bit, an email here and there. And then kind of the second month, I think that had more than doubled. And the shop was still really, really quiet. And then my lease was coming up. And it really made sense that this was obviously taking off. I was, as I say, obsessed with needle felting, and were really early on it. There wasn't really anybody else doing anything. There was 1 or 2 little kit companies kicking around, but not much. And I saw something there and realised that I was flogging a dead horse with the shop.
I want to take a moment now to talk about our sponsor, Warp and Weft Textiles. Warp and Weft Textiles is owned and operated by husband and wife team Jay Havner and Michelle Collier. Jay is the muscle, and Michelle is a hand weaver with a degree in fiber arts and a lifetime of learning textile-based skills from her elders and juniors. Mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Warp and Weft operates from a remote island on the maritime border between British Columbia and Washington State. This location is essential because it's at the center of Warp and Weft's commitment to environmental justice, specifically in its mission to keep plastic out of its business practices, as well as out of the workspaces of their fellow Wefties, as Warp and Weft customers are fondly called. None of the products they offer contain plastics, and they give first priority to vendors who are also plastics-free or are actively working towards significant plastic reduction. The fabrics stocked by Warp and Weft are carefully chosen, not only for containing zero plastics. They are also selected for high-quality natural materials, beautiful design work, and respect for every maker's creative practice. Warp and Weft knows anything worth making is worth making to last, and the fabrics are truly the real star of Warp and Weft. Specialties include traditional and contemporary Japanese textiles, hand-spun, hand-woven, and hand-block-printed fabrics from India, organic cotton prints from Finland, beautiful Ankara and Shwe cotton prints from several African countries, and a broad variety of shot woven solids appropriate for fashion sewing and quilt making. So check them out. That's Warp and Weft Textiles. Thank you so much. And now back to my conversation with Stephanie. Right. And I think it's so important to just be able to pivot and not feel like, oh, that was a failure, but like that taught me what I needed to do, next. So, and listening to that feedback of all this interest, this burgeoning interest in the kits, and especially in needle felting. Okay, so you then are now working full time doing these kits, and I'm assuming the packaging had to get better than the brown paper bag, and maybe you expanded out just from needle felting. So talk us through the sort of next stage.
Yeah, so kind of it is 9 years, but yeah, the first few years, we had brown craft boxes after the bag with labels on, but that was pretty good at the time. There wasn't people in the craft world weren't kind of doing fancy packaging or anything, and they looked good. It was just me, and I had a little desk set up in our tiny little spare room at home, and then I worked out of like a yellow door storage unit. So I would go in, close the door, no windows, freezing cold, no electricity, and just put the light on. That was all you had, or the lights that go off when you stop moving after a while, those kind, and pack kits and get the orders out. And the girls in the office that ran the storage unit would make me cups of tea, and they'd like handle all my parcels for me, so they'd hold on to them for the guys to come and pick up. They were superb. I don't think it's strange, those little people that happen along the way.
Yeah.
That had such an impact, and they were so supportive, even though they really didn't need to be. And I started off with one little unit, and then I needed more space, and I moved into another little unit, and I kind of ended up with my little like empire in the corner of this storage space, with people coming and like putting their like spare mattresses and stuff next to me. And then it got to the point that really was just the business had grown to a point that wasn't sustainable anymore. I really needed something else, and I was really lucky to find an amazing unit on a local farm nearby. It's actually really odd. It's an old cattle shed with like a extension on this old cattle shed, and it had been built for another company, a telecommunications company, a few years beforehand, about 10 years beforehand. And my partner actually used to work in the same building when it was built for the other company, and then it had become a children's nursery, so it had this amazing mural on the wall with like pigs and tractors and stuff. And it's about 1,000 square feet, and I moved in there on my own still, so I still hadn't got any like staff or anything. It was still just myself, with the view that I was going to run workshops from there as well, which I did for about 18 months. And everything it's been very organic. It just kind of, I kept on getting new wholesale customers. That's really what's grown the business, is the wholesale side of things. Getting the website kind of rolling, getting more views on Etsy and getting that kind of ticking over nicely. And then come January 2015, I took on my first staff member, who was very much part-time, but just helped with all the packing and stuff. And it really has just, grown from there. And then, it would have been about that time that we added crochet, actually. We had a range of crochet kits for a while. They proved a little bit too expensive for people. It didn't quite work. They were gorgeous. It was all British wool, and we did all the wool balling in-house. We packed all like the stuffing. There were amigurumi animals and also some cushion kits and things. I loved those kits, but they weren't kind of commercially viable, so they only lasted a couple of years. And then it really was when the needle felting was doing really well, more people knew about it, and I was wanting to do something else. And off the back of that came the embroidery designs. So they were the first set that we did of animals, some of which are still going, were based on kind of just some sketches and doodles that I was doing without a view to them being anything else than just a sketch and a doodle. And then it kind of started kind of thinking, there's perhaps something else here, and I can draw and turn those drawings into a craft kit. As that combination of those two things, I just hadn't occurred to me before. It hadn't been a thing. But it was, that was a real kind of moment. And then the embroidery is now our kind of key range. Yeah. And it's not just me doing the designs anymore, but I still do a lot of the drawing for them. There was the embroidery. And then, we've just kind of carried on, and we added weaving, and then cross stitch, and then most recently the felt craft kits, which I love as well.
They're beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I really thought it was a great detail that you mentioned around the crochet kits being both beautiful and very special with British wool. You were really proud of them, but then they weren't profitable, or the price point was too high for the consumer and they didn't do well. And so you had to phase them out. And I think, again, to not see that as a failure, but to say, like, just because I love this doesn't mean that this is going to work for the business. And so making that decision, I think, is really important. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how the packaging has evolved over time, because one of the things that's important when you are wholesaling kits to retailers, and we mentioned in the intro, you have almost 600 retailers at this point, is that the kit has to sort of do well on a shelf in a shop. So the consumer needs to be able to, at a glance, understand what's inside this kit. It needs to not get shop worn easily, right? It needs to be able to sit on that shelf, be picked up and put down by all kinds of different people all day long, right? And still look good. And so, I have designed one kit and it was published through a big publisher, but it was very fascinating when it came, it was all finished and it arrived at my doorstep. And I was like, wow, this thing's like foolproof. And then you see it at Barnes & Noble and you're like, well, that's why. Who knows who's going to pick this thing up? And there's no way to get in there and get this stuff out unless you actually buy this. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you've sort of figured that piece of the puzzle out.
Yeah, so as I say, we just started off with brown boxes. They were actually ream boxes for paper that you buy when you buy like a chunk of paper and it comes in a box. It was those boxes that we found. I sourced them wholesale from somewhere. I'm not entirely sure how I found them, but they were really flimsy, which was one of the issues with them. And then also, I really wanted to. I've always been quite ambitious with the business. It's been organic but ambitious, and I really wanted to push things forward. And in the craft kit world, kind of in 2015 kind of time, everything was in plastic bags, so cross-stitch kits and stuff, so many plastic bags, or even just a plastic bag without a hanger on that's just kind of sitting on a shelf, or brown boxes. And I decided to go for it and get some proper packaging designed. So we worked with a local graphic designer who did our first box designs, which were these beautiful kind of botanical illustrative drawings over the boxes with lots of hawthorn and then animals kind of leaping around with space then for labels. And we've always done plain boxes, which we then label, which means that we can buy boxes in bulk, kind of proper bulk, tens of thousands bulk, and then just do the labels for them. And if a kit doesn't work, if we discontinue something, there's no waste, which is one key thing for us. We work really hard to have as low waste as possible with everything. So we had those which were kind of fold up boxes. So it was a big net that kind of came flat and you had to put the hook bits over and put them in tabs and all of that kind of stuff. So they were really, really strong and did us really well for quite a while. But then as things ramped up and we needed to up production, we're always looking at ways that our systems can improve. And one of the main systems that was going to change for us was packing quicker. And the boxes were a huge time sap on that because they took ages to kind of hook around and put together. So I think we had already started with embroidery boxes, which were just tuck boxes. And we decided to do a revamp again a couple of years ago on all the packaging, and we've moved everything to a tuck box system. So just a glued kind of tube with a flap in at the top and a flap in at the bottom.
Right.
So much quicker for packing. And a lot of what we do kind of comes down to how quick can we pack it, how can that system improve. And we changed the designs entirely and we added a lot more color in to really make them stand out. We got amazing feedback on our packaging over the years, and really kind of very much a lot of feedback from the fact that we were one of the few companies doing something a bit different in the craft kind of world, in the UK particularly. Really kind of, there wasn't much else out there that was in nice giftable packaging, and that made a huge difference, and it got us into some of the some of the stockists that we've got into. We were in the V&A, for instance, in their shop. We worked and did a bespoke range for the National Trust, which is a huge UK heritage organisation with over 200 stores, and we did specific kits just for them, and that was all off the back of the packaging. because there wasn't anything else that kind of stood out like that.
Right.
And like you say, and had a bit of thought about it and was going to withstand being picked up and dropped and people fingers trying to eke in and pull stuff out and things, and you can never fully kind of measure against what's going to happen to stuff once it's in store, but we're always trying to improve and trying to change things up. We don't have like built-in hangers on our boxes, but we offer put hangers, like glued hangers on them for stores that want to hang all the products and things like that. So we're flexible and we work with the shops depending on what display space they have, what they've got available to them, to make sure that the stuff is going to look as good as it can, because we want it to sell, we want it to work for them, and we want it to work for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love if you could talk a little bit about the importance of photography. You have beautiful photography on product photography on the Hawthorn Handmade website. So each of the sort of kit samples, you can see what it looks like when it's all stitched out and it's completed. And you can also see what the supplies are going to look like, and things like that. And so, I think the quality of the packaging is hugely important. But then also when I'm imagining when a new wholesale account is considering carrying these products, they're going to look at the photography to determine whether or not this is something they actually want in their store.
Yeah, I think the photography for anybody selling online has got to be top of your list. It really has. There's a lot of bad photography out there, and therefore it's not all that hard to stand up and stand out, really, with a bit of decent lighting. And I have to give total props to our photographer, who is Stacey Grant. She is amazing. She does all of the styling, all the actual photography, editing, etc. for us, and she specializes in craft photography. So she works for Search Press, or does a lot of their stuff, various other craft companies, and she really knows her stuff, but she also is amazing at listening to a brief and looking at a brand and what they're trying to get across, and then managing to do that with the stuff with the kind of props and everything that she pulls together. And we really worked with her initially when we decided to kind of go for it with professional photography, that the colours that she uses and the kind of feel of the style was right, which is kind of grown up but fun at the same time. So there's lots of fun colours in there. You'll find some of like our needle felted animals in little scenes that she has created for them, all made out of kind of cut bits of paper or little kind of bits you pick up in your local craft store, kind of little balsa wood bits and pieces. There's some really cute, fun little ideas that she comes up with. And she just today sent us through some pictures for some new cross stitch that we've got coming out. And they're a bit of a different design, a bit of a different palette to what we've used before. And she has taken that and mixed it up with the previous palettes that she's used and the previous look, but just shifted it slightly towards the new kits and their feel. So it's not, they don't stand out, they won't look wrong against the previous pictures that we've got, but they are their own thing and in their own right. And I think that's an amazing skill to be able to do that. And that's entirely her. And the comments we get from the photos is not necessarily a daily basis, but it's definitely a weekly basis. We will get feedback on the photos because we obviously allow all of our stockists to use those on their website and everything as well, which makes their lives so much easier. And we have all the cut out, the boring, the white shots as well for them if needed, and the picture of the box, etc.
Could you talk a little bit about how you found these wholesale accounts? Because I know that that's another piece of this puzzle, which is to say, like, it sounds like in the beginning you were teaching workshops and had your gallery, and it was fairly easy to connect with some new stores and build that first sort of initial set of wholesale clients. But over time, you said you were ambitious, which I really appreciate, and really wanted to grow this business. So how did you go about finding shops? I guess I'm thinking, in the beginning it was probably UK based, and then later in the US.
Yeah, so initially we really did a lot of trade shows, and because I'd been going to trade shows as a buyer, that was familiar to me. It was an obvious move because I knew that was where I got stuff from. So we booked a trade show called the British Craft Trade Fair, and I did that for the first one. I think it was 2014, early on in like spring 2014 we did that. And we were the only people there with craft kits. It was all in amongst the kind of, like we were talking about earlier, the fine arts level of stuff. It was amazing jewelers and ceramicists, and we were there with our brown box craft kits, and it remains one of the most successful trade shows that we've ever done. It was insane. We won an award whilst we were there for, I think, best new products. It was an amazing experience, and we just were taking orders constantly. And it was myself, when I say we, it was myself and my mum who helps with the business quite a bit. She's always done all the trade shows with me, and kind of really helps also on a kind of always on the end of the phone kind of way. But we love doing the shows together. And that was such a success that then trade shows became a big part of the model. So we have, until 2019, done at least 3 or 4 trade shows a year. And that's all been UK. We did one in Germany, 2019, the H&H.
Right.
So we went out there and did that. That was really good. It was a bit of a different experience doing one in Europe, and in a country with a different language. But then the people that were there were from all over the world. It was so diverse. I mean, I don't think we actually spoke to all that many Germans, even though we were in Germany. We were speaking to French and Brazilian and a lot of Americans and British who'd come over and stuff. That was a really great show. More from an experience point of view than necessarily a sales perspective. But that's the thing with trade shows, though. There's always more to get out of them than just straight sales. The conversations, I think, are really not such a tangible thing to measure, but definitely something that's a real benefit from them. So we've done loads of trade shows. I went out to Creativation in 2018. I didn't actually have a booth there, but I visited with some friends who did, and just kind of walked the floor for 3 days and met people, went to all the talks and stuff, which was great. And so that's been the definite key pusher for finding people. And then in the earlier days, it was also a lot of outreach. So a lot of cold messaging people, finding people online, finding out the right name, giving them a quick call, dropping them a catalogue over, just sending them all our details. And it's the kind of thing that I did work hard at it, but it sounds like, I always don't want to sound big-headed. It's a very British thing to be kind of modest, but we've got a really good product, and that did a lot of the work for us because we were quite unique at the time. There really wasn't a whole lot around like that. So people, and if a buyer something is put in front of them that is a bit different and a bit unique, they're like, great, this is saving me having to do work. So that can save an awful lot of time for them. A lot of outreach, and we've been doing less of that recently, partly because having the time to do it, it's quite a big thing, and there's only so many hours in the day. But we've found that we've got a lot of organic growth just from word of mouth and people seeing us in some of the stores that we're in. So and seeing us, the people we work with and collaborate with, and sales coming off the back of that. And then in the last year, Fair has been a huge game changer for us.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Fair. So for folks who aren't familiar, Fair is an online wholesale marketplace. And I wondered, some people really argue that the fees are too high and things like that, but it sounds like for you, it's been really helpful.
Well, we're used to paying for trade shows. So when it's a 25% kind of founder's fee for a first order from somebody that you haven't bought to the site that they've kind of found for you. And for us, in comparison to what we pay for trade shows, once you've paid for the space, paid for your booth, paid for all the stuff you're getting there, all your accommodation, everything that goes with it, it's actually really, really affordable. And then the subsequent orders, I think 15%. But if you bring people there direct, so all of our previous customers, almost all of them have now moved on to buying through Fair.
Okay.
And we don't pay any commission on them. But they get the amazing benefits. They get the 60-day payment terms. They might get free shipping. They can get credit on their account. There so many things. It's all very much a kind of feels too good to be true. And I've no idea how their model's going to work over time. I don't know how Fair are going to make any money.
I mean, they've got a lot of venture capital right now, which kind of like keeps things going and to a certain point. Yeah.
Well, those people are going to want their money back at some point. That's the point that I'm kind of intrigued as to what will happen. But they've been superb. They're really supportive. Anytime we've needed help or assistance with anything, they've been there. And yeah, I had a bit of a look earlier. So over we've just been with them just about over 12 months. And because they didn't open up in the UK until quite a while after they'd started in the States. And we've, I think, it's close to 500 customers just through Fair from the last 12 months.
Wow.
Which is amazing. And I say half of those are in America.
Right.
Which is where we are focusing our efforts at the moment in terms of growth and growth potential. It's obviously still sticking with the UK. But as I'm sure you're all aware, Brexit has been a major disaster. Ooh, who knew that was going to come? And the EU is just not a doable thing for us at the moment. There's too many restrictions, whereas working with the States is really easy. And it's the same language. Everyone, but so many people are into crafts there. It's a really easy market for us, and Fair has just opened that up hugely, and is the reason we're heading off to Chicago in a couple of weeks.
Right, to be at H&H Americas. Yeah, we're so excited. Yes.
Oh, I can't wait. I really can't. Though I did just look at the weather earlier. It was going to be hot. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it is going to be hot. I know. I'm like, I'm going to wear this sundress while I'm there. So, yeah, that's great. And so I wonder, do you have somebody on your team now who just manages these wholesale accounts?
Not at the moment. It is still myself. So we are actually looking for someone to do that at the minute, but recruitment is hard. I was listening to your podcast with the guys from the weaving, the loom company, whose name has just jumped out of my head.
Oh, Shock Spindle, maybe?
Yes, yeah. And they were discussing how difficult recruitment was and hiring.
Yeah.
And it's the same here. It's really hard to find people, and we want to find the right people. With hiring and running, in terms of running the business, that's got to be the most difficult bit. It really has. I mean, I can deal with cash flow and I can deal with other issues coming up, but finding the right people to help us move forward, who are there for the right reasons, is incredibly tricky. And to be honest, at the moment, it's just getting people to apply for a job is really tricky.
Yeah.
So we're on the lookout at the minute for someone to help us on the wholesale side, because not much is happening with it. And even though without doing much, it's got growth. So we've got growth in 2022 on 21, and 21 was an amazing year for us. So we're in a really amazing position with it. It's doing incredibly well. And just think, if we could get somebody just doing that, and that was all that they were working on, the potential there is huge, but it really is finding that right person. So at the moment, it's mainly myself, and also my operations manager helps on aspects of it, and a few of the other team members here and there. So, yeah.
And you mentioned 2021 was great. Can you talk a little bit about the impact of the pandemic? I know we did an article about craft kits during the pandemic, and you were mentioned in that piece. And so, what was it like for the business during that period?
Yeah, it's that it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was, even though we've now had a bit of time to kind of reflect and stuff, even though it's not, the pandemic hasn't gone away, but we've got a bit of space to reflect, that it's still really hard to kind of look back and go, wow, what happened? Because we had certain weeks in the early kind of 2020, so like April, May, June 2020, we were 1,200% up. And we had the same team. So there was 5 of us, and we were, I've never worked so hard. It was insane. We got to know each other very, very well. So when it first all started kicking off, we thought, oh, this is going to be horrendous. We put one of our staff members on furlough straight away, because we just we've got to manage this and not have too many people in the space and things. And then the orders started to come in, and they just did not stop for 18 months. It really was. And it was kind of after 3 months of just not stopping, and us kind of going, this has got to ease up at some point. And it really just didn't. And until kind of about this point last year, really, we were through to the middle of 21 before it started to kind of just pull back on the gas a little. It was insane. And that was very much direct customer stuff. So we've been very focused on the wholesale, but this was certainly a boost through our own website and through our Etsy store. And we're also on a couple of other UK marketplaces. And hundreds and hundreds of orders a day. And we suddenly worked out and realised how much work we could do in a certain space of time, and how to improve our systems and change our processes. And there's only 6 of us still, because we've gotten so lean and so we've got such a good knowledge now of how to do everything really, really condensed and without any waste and everything, that it's given us a huge boost on that side for the business to really work out what we can do. And then the other side of it was that we had this huge up, so we went right up to the top of the roller coaster, and it did then come down again. And now we're heading into a cost of living crisis. The supply chain issues that we've had have been difficult to navigate. We have just about kept on top of that. We've kind of seen some things coming and managed to hedge our way around it pretty much. We have like our wooden hoops, for instance, in our embroidery kits. They, for a good 6 months, at one point, I can't even remember when, a lot of people couldn't get hold of them. They were stuck. All the embroidery hoops were stuck in China somewhere on a ship or in the Suez Canal. I've kind of forgotten that happened as well. So we've had all these kind of bits come flying at us, and we have pretty much managed to bat them off. But it's come down again in terms of sales. But then, and that's on the direct consumer side. But then our wholesale is still growing. So it's a real roller coaster. It is. I've been running my own business for 12 years now, from previously having the shop, and I've never known anything like it. It's you just don't know what's happening next, and that's still the case. We can't kind of relax yet, I don't feel.
And your kits are really made for beginners. I mean, in your description, they are kits for beginners. And I wondered if you could talk about why you kind of stick with that level when it comes to a kit.
Yeah, so I get asked this a lot, why don't you do more expert level things? And I feel with that there are other companies who do that, and they do that really, really well. And our focus is beginners, and that is what we do. And I think that there's a lot of skill in knowing how to do that. So I don't really, at this time, want to dilute that, really. We know how to do this one thing very, very well. And I am only a kind of beginner mid-level on a lot of these crafts that we sell. So I do know kind of what the kits we do. I know how to do those crafts very, very well to the level that we sell them at. So I don't have that next level experience. I am not kind of Royal School of Needlework trained in embroidery and can do gold work and stuff. I don't necessarily know about all the different fabrics that you can stitch on, or working with. I know a lot about needle felting. I do know a lot on that side, but then it starts to get into real kind of high expert levels of tuition required to kind of jump to that next stage. And that's just not something I feel comfortable doing and giving out to other people, because it's not something I'm confident with myself. And one of our things is we're providing people with a level of expertise for the level that they are working at. And we don't have that for the next steps. And it's just, I like the fact that we do really, really good beginner instructions. And you can learn a brand new craft totally from scratch, having never done it before, by picking up one of our kits. And that's our thing.
And can you talk a little bit about e-commerce? So you mentioned that you are on Etsy. And so sort of why stay on Etsy? I know we talked about Fair. When it comes to your website, and it sounds like your partner is a web developer, which is amazing. Is that a Shopify site? And if so, do you have a separate wholesale side, or how does that work?
Yep, so we have a Shopify store. It's just being updated at the moment, so we'll have a slightly refreshed one coming out soon. And like you say, yes, that is my partner who does that for us, so that's rather handy. And that works really well for us. The way the Shopify system is set up. It's just easy. All the payment side of things is just easy, especially now they've got their new 2.0 system. So it's much more drag and drop. So if Owen can't do an edit on something, can't do a tweak, actually with the new websites now, I could probably manage that myself with my basic knowledge. And yeah, it just works really well for us. And then we have a WordPress and Woo site for our wholesale, which is set up kind of for international purchases. So that can be UK stockists, EU, States, or Australia as well. That's actually not being used much at the moment because almost everybody is using Fair.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's so interesting.
It's kind of that we're keeping it going for the minute because I think I'm very cautious of putting all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
And Fair could just disappear tomorrow if it wanted to. Same with like people, if you're heavily reliant on Instagram or something, they could just switch it off. It's that wonderful thing about having your own email list and your own blog and stuff. It's so important.
Yeah.
So we'll
and as you said with Fair, sorry to interrupt, but as you said with Fair, like those initial investors, those venture capitalists are going to need to get their money back. And so it'll be interesting to see what the future holds. And it's possible, that company will go public. And if it does, sometimes the priorities, shift from the priority shifts to being for shareholders versus being for users necessarily. Or they could get sold to, a private equity firm. And again, there's then, they often want efficiencies. So maybe the quality might change. So it's so hard to know, but it's so fascinating how well it's done for you.
Yeah, no. And, I've seen the same for quite a few other people, and I think they've grown too quickly. I think they've put too many brands on the site because I do know quite a few people now who joined up in the last kind of 6 months who haven't managed to get any traction on there whatsoever. So I think we were quite lucky in that we were an early UK adopter. So we've done quite well off of that. But I'm conscious that it's out of our control as to what happens. And like you say, we're going public potentially. I think that's a strong likelihood, and we've all seen the changes that have happened to Etsy and things. With the shift of that. So.
Absolutely. And are you still on Etsy? And why? What is the argument to say, well, yeah, and we're going to stay there?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We are still on Etsy, and we still do well on there. So I guess that's the argument to stay on there is that that the sales tick over. They aren't as big as they were in the middle of the pandemic, but they are good enough to make it worth our while, and it doesn't take a huge amount of upkeep. So we get a new listing on, we work on our tags, we change, and play around with our titles. I need to look at the descriptions now that the SEO is taking into account the descriptions. We haven't got around to that yet. But we've got all the photos already, and it doesn't detract from our own website. I think that's one of the main things, is that it's works alongside it. It's a different audience, and it finds us new people. So I see a lot of people who moan about the Etsy fees, but God, you'd be paying a lot more if you were going to try and get those same number of people in front of your own store. You really would. So the eyes on our products that happen, and just that thing of people seeing you kind of 7 times before they might want to actually make a purchase. It's another tick on that list. So yeah, for the moment, it's still working for us. I really like it as a community. It's obviously got its flaws. I actually ended up on Radio 4 last year on the BBC talking about its flaws. So it's not perfect, but at the moment, it ticks enough boxes for us.
What were some of the flaws you pointed out during that radio interview?
That was all about the resellers.
Oh, yeah.
So it's been really interesting. Obviously, there's been the people just buying the stuff from China, the AliExpress, Alibaba stuff. And then in the UK, I don't know if this has been the same in the US, but in the UK, people have been buying stuff at local bargain stores. So the local bargain stores that have got some kind of quite nice looking homewares. They're actually probably really cheap and tacky and have come from China in the first place. And you buy them for £10, and then they're maybe spraying them and putting them on Etsy for £45. So that's where the article on the BBC had come from, was people complaining about that. But I was talking about that fact that there's a lot of stuff in the embroidery and in the craft kit industry that's the same. So there's a lot of kits that you can buy on Alibaba and AliExpress. that people sell as their own. And you can see them, you can spot them. If you go down, if you search embroidery kit on Etsy and pootle down the lists, you'll start to see a couple of the very same designs but sold by different people. And they might have photographed them themselves to make them look a bit different, but it's the same kit. And it is one that you can go on Amazon and get and stuff, and sold as a small business handmade craft kit. Which is, and it's definitely damaged our business. It's definitely affected our sales because they can sell them for half the price because they're buying them for a couple of quid from China. That was one of the main things that was talking about. So.
And that's happening in craft kits. It's literally happening in every single category. So, yes. It's a huge issue, I think, with the Etsy platform, and certainly not something I think that they are addressing to the degree that they could.
I think they know full well about it, and it's making them money, and that's their bottom line at the end of the day.
So you mentioned earlier that you do a lot of the drawing and initially did all of the drawing especially for the embroidery kits. And do you have outside artists now that you're commissioning, or is every product that Hawthorn Handmade sells is your own signature product? So you're not, sourcing, I guess the supplies, maybe the scissors and things like that, you're sourcing elsewhere. But when it comes to the kit designs themselves, those are all yours. It's not like you're curating a collection of kits from other designers. But do you have another in-house designer you're working with now?
Yeah, so we have Claire, who is our lead designer, and she does all of our graphic work, so everything that goes out on the website and on emails, all that kind of thing, labels and stuff. And she also works on product. So she, for instance, we've got a range of embroidery kits called Wonderful Women, we've got 8 of those at the moment, which are all a diverse group of women doing hobbies, basically. So there's a gardening one, a cycling, hiking, baking, that kind of thing. She's done all of those. She's worked on quite a number of the embroidery designs that we've brought out more recently. So she's an amazing illustrator. She did art and illustration at university and is a real asset to the company. So she works in-house. And then we've worked with freelancers. So we have a lady, Laura Howard, who works with us on our felt craft kits. And that's her speciality. She has released books, about 3 or 4 books, I think, all about felt craft, and really, really knows her stuff there. And again, that comes to pulling in expertise, because she then helped developing the instructions for those kits was all done with her, and putting her years and years of knowledge into that, and just those little tips and tricks that you can only get from having done it for years. So that's all gone into the felt craft kits. And I did actually for a while as well work with another needle felt designer on a few kits, just because it was a point where I didn't have enough capacity in my time to do any more, but we wanted to bring new designs out, so we worked with her for a while. I've actually brought that back, and I'm back doing the needle felting now. And then the weaving side of things, I kind of developed the colours and the feel of the palettes for them, and it's actually my mum who did the weaves for the weaving kits to put a pattern into the kit. They're slightly different because you don't have to follow the pattern. You can go off and do your own thing, but if you want to follow the pattern, that's there for you. And that was actually, I think I did 2 of them and my mum did 4 of those. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. And
last question before we get to your recommendations, which is around the future. So you've been doing this for a decade more, and it's a lot of work. It's expanded enormously. As you said, there's still enormous potential for expansion. And in the long term, do you have hopes of being able to sell this business? Are you planning to pass this business on to family, or what do you think the long-term future will be for Hawthorn Handmade?
Yeah, at the moment, we've been talking about this kind of thing a lot recently because we've been doing a lot of planning. I'm actually starting a course in September, like a kind of mini MBA course of business and growing and leadership, that kind of thing. So my head is very much in the business and still running with it at the moment. I'm only 37, so I'm not even 37 yet. It's next week I'm 37. I've still got quite a bit of time left here at the moment. But that is with a view that there is value in this, and at some point in the future, that might be, we might need to bring in some funding via equity, maybe something along those lines. But those are things that are all kind of, there's stuff that we're talking about now, but just so that we've kind of got our heads around it so that we can see the signs for when it starts to be needed. We're just kind of, there's a lot of prep work that we do and a lot of thinking about the future, but with a kind of, not yet, but, just so we know where we might be heading. But at the moment, there's so much I want to do, and the problem is just having the time to do it. So, I really want to grow the team to free myself up to be able to do the bits that really push things forward and really move the needle. And I can't do a lot of that at the moment because we're still a small team, and I end up working kind of on the day-to-day bits. So that's my real next kind of main ambition, is to build that team up and get people in place who can do all of those aspects, and I can kind of focus on the big picture.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. And I would love to get to your recommendations because you've got some good ones. The first one is a podcast. I'm a huge podcast listener. And I know this one is very popular. It's called Gold Digger, and it's with Jenna Kutcher.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will have heard of this, but if you haven't, I will just want you to go and listen to it because I love Jenna Kutcher. She's great. She is so non-judgmental in her approach to things. And she talks about business, but it has then kind of expanded more into life stuff as well. And she's just got such an amazing view on things that I find really inspiring. And I come away, I listen to it in the car on my drive to work, and it just sets me up right for the day. And every single episode that I listen to, I will scribble a few notes down, not while I'm driving, I'll add at the end, but I'll scribble a few notes down, and there will be something that helps me move forward with my life or with the business from every episode. And I think that's amazing.
And you also wanted to recommend an app for editing videos for social media, which is awesome because video is where it's at, especially on Instagram. And this app is called Viva Video. I actually have not heard of this one before.
Yeah, I think quite a few people haven't. And I find it, I've tried it a lot, and I find it the most easily it's very intuitive. You can really figure out where stuff is. It's got a lot of music in it as well, which has got all the copyright stuff sorted for you. I pay for the pro version, but I think it's about £7 a year or something ludicrous like that. I just find it really simple to use. I can just pop something in there, chop it around, change the canvas size, which I find really helpful. So if you're working across platforms, you need to change it from an Instagram size to a TikTok size to a YouTube size and do all of that. You can do all those bits in there, which I've just found really helpful. And it's the one I've kind of landed on. So
great to know. Yeah. And you have another recommendation, which is your local museum. It's called Museum of Making in Derby. So tell us about this museum in case anyone is local and would like to visit.
Yeah, so it's not actually local to me anymore. It's where I come from.
So okay.
It's actually pronounced Derby for
Derby.
The UK.
Got it.
I guess how you say the name kind of thing.
Yes.
So it's just an amazing museum, and obviously a lot of people won't be able to visit it in person, but there's the online side of it that you can look at as well. And it only opened last year, I think it was, after delayed by the pandemic. And it's just an incredible look at both the local world of making and manufacture, but also kind of how that relates to the wider world as well. And their whole collection is on display. So you can go into the collection rooms and they've got everything grouped by material, and it is the most incredible space. And you can just go in and go to ceramics, and it's all these museum artifacts and things made locally that are all ceramics or all metal or wood and things. And it's at a place that was Derby was kind of one of the real early starters of the Industrial Revolution. So it's got a lot of heritage behind it. It's part of the Derwent Valley. There was this run of mills through this valley. And I think it's actually a World Heritage area. It's an amazing kind of story to this place, and somewhere that's probably not it's not on any tourist trails. A lot of people wouldn't necessarily hear about it, but they've opened this museum, and it's got to be one of the best museums I've ever been to. And then in the main atrium, kind of when you go in, there is a Rolls-Royce jet engine hanging from the ceiling. And we actually stock their shop that they have there as well. And I visited when it opened with my mum and dad, and there was this Rolls-Royce jet engine that has parts in it that my dad made, hanging above my kits in the shop. And it's just a lovely kind of
my gosh,
local thing.
That's
and
amazing.
It's an amazing space, and such a big thing for an area that doesn't really have a huge amount of that kind of thing. That kind of stuff is not there's not a massive kind of cultural centre around there, so it's a real a big thing for that space and that area. And I just loved it, and I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, what a wonderful recommendation. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. It was great talking with you.
Oh, it's been lovely being here. Thanks so much, Abby.
And you've been listening to the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Today's episode was brought to you by Warp and Weft Textiles. All products at Warp and Weft Textiles are chosen to use the skills we learn from our elders to make heirlooms for our future generations. All the fabrics, notions, patterns, and publications found at Warp and Weft are plastics-free and intended to be handed down to future generations. Find your future heirloom fabrics with a 15% off discount for Craft Industry Alliance listeners. Use the discount code WEFTY15CIA, that's WEFTY15CIA, and follow Warp and Weft Textiles on Instagram at Warp and Weft Textiles, all spelled out with no periods or dashes. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals. When you become a member of Craft Industry Alliance, you get in-depth coverage of craft industry news, the opportunity to connect with fellow professionals for advice and support, and access to an educational library filled with ideas, tools, and resources to help you as you build your business. Join us at craftindustrｙalliance.org. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.